My name's Dan Lynch, and I'm the founder of the Lynch Law Group. Started it in January of 2002. I've been a lawyer for 27 years. When I meet potential clients, business owners, those are typically my clients, I explain to them that I'm also a business owner, right? And all the issues that they faced from when they started their company and that they're facing now as they run their company, I faced when I started my company, and I face on a day-to-day basis running this company. So it makes me running the firm and growing over the last 18 years running this firm has made me a better lawyer. I grew up in the Mon Valley, southwestern Pennsylvania, in a town called Bell Vernon. Graduated from Bell Vernon High School, and it was a pretty modest upbringing. Law school was at the University of Detroit. So I had this swimming pool cleaning and service company, ended up hiring people to help. At one point we had a couple of crews out there, but I used that to pay my way through college and law school. My first job out of law school was clerking for a justice on the Michigan Supreme Court, Justice James Brickley. I did that for 1 year, and then I got a clerkship with the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit with a judge named Carol Mansman. That's what brought me back to Pittsburgh. Me and my wife, we were married in my third year of law school. I worked at Reed Smith in the litigation group, and I then, in 1999, I got recruited by a client to run a software company. It was an incubator. It was from these. It was created by these geniuses out of CMU, who developed some technology, and they hired me to commercialize it. And I said, I don't know anything about running a company. And they said, yeah, you do. They said, look, you're an entrepreneur. At that time in my life, I'd also owned a business in Ligonier, a cottage rental business. And they said, you're an entrepreneur between the swimming pool company and the cottage business and leaderships. They said, you're a leader. You manage your own caseload and teams of lawyers at Reed Smith. You'd be perfect. It wasn't an easy decision because I was on the partnership track with a great outlook of a career at Reed Smith. But I looked around the room at Reed Smith, and I wondered, what if I don't try this? I had a kid. Our first child was born, our son, and I thought, what am I going to be able to tell him when he's 30-some years old and he comes to me and says, Dad, I've got this opportunity. What do you think? And my answer is, I don't know. I've only worked at Reed Smith my whole life. So I agonized over that and wanted perspective and an experience, and it turned out to be a pretty darn good decision. Although it was not easy to get there. April of 2000 occurred, and that was when our economy slipped into a mini recession. And so every reason that existed that caused me to want to leave Reed Smith disappeared overnight. So I had hired, I raised $1 million, I had hired 17 people, and after April of 2000, I ended up burning through $1 million and firing 17 people. So it was really painful and difficult, but nonetheless, a tremendous learning experience. And so then I went to work for a much bigger company called Pittsburgh Logistics. It was a third-party logistics provider. There I ran the legal department. I was executive vice president and general counsel, and reported to the CEO. HR reported up through me, facilities reported up through me, security reported up through me. So it was a very demanding job. It was I had a lot of juggling going on, a lot of hats to wear. And I did that for a little over a year, and it was a different type of environment. The culture there was way different than I was used to, and wasn't having a ton of fun. And I decided it was time to do something else. I really liked private practice. I really liked being a lawyer, but I also liked running my own company. And so I thought, well, it's either pool cleaning or practicing law. And so it didn't take very long to decide that probably starting a law firm or hanging my shingle, as some people put it, to be the direction I decided to go. I was a litigator at Reed Smith, working, running 3E software and working as general counsel for PLS. Turned me a bit into a corporate lawyer and a transactional lawyer because I did all of the transactions, all the contracts, an employment lawyer because I did all of the employment agreements and separation agreements. So if it was easy for me to get work because somebody said, hey, can you do this transaction? I'd say, yeah, I can do that. Or, hey, can you do this piece of litigation? Yeah, I could do that. And so we ramped up pretty quickly. And my MO at the time was, I'm a large firm lawyer. I'm the same lawyer sitting behind this desk in Cranberry as I was sitting behind my desk at Reed Smith. And I can offer clients that same high-end quality of lawyering, of professionalism, of intellect and work ethic, what you'd expect from a downtown law firm. But now, in this environment, they'd be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and they'd have a much better rate structure. To stay true to that model, everybody that I've hired over the years, we're at 21 lawyers as of today. Everyone that I've hired has that same sort of high-end, large firm pedigree or resume, if you will. I call them recovering large firm lawyers. And if not, they have some other distinguishing characteristic that makes them not average. Now the firm is, I used to call it a boutique business firm, but I'm not sure that 21 Lawyers qualifies as a boutique anymore. We're more of a full-service law firm. We do corporate transactions, mergers and acquisitions, day-to-day contracts, vendor contracts, client contracts. We have a litigation group that does commercial litigation. Pretty much any type of litigation except personal injury or workers' comp or that kind of stuff. We have a real estate group. We have a family law lawyer. We've got a transportation lawyer. We have a couple of employment lawyers. And we have 3 patent lawyers. About 5 years ago, I was getting a lot of calls from my clients. You sort of grow up with your clients. And about 5 years ago, my clients began saying, Dan, how do I retire? How do I get liquidity out of my life's work? I've got $200 in my 401k because I plowed all my money back into my business, and I've got this business that's worth $15 million. What do we do? And so you can't talk to a business owner about a succession plan without talking about his estate plan. And you can't talk to a business owner about his estate plan without talking about his succession plan for the business. So the two dovetail, estate planning and corporate world dovetail really nicely together. And so I hired Chuck Haddad, and who's one of my current partners, and a couple of lawyers that also did estate planning. And so that's a big piece of what we're doing today.